Wait! Being hunted by a first world military is going to be certainly much more problematic than many of the scenarios that we're going to be presenting in this entire series. The question might be asked, why is this information necessary? Why is it pertinent? Well, I would very much so hope that this information never becomes necessary and pertinent, but it's important to be prepared. The United States has a long history of prepared citizens securing rights. The War of Independence was won because men like you and women like you were prepared and ready to fight. Warfare has changed a lot. It isn't what it used to be. And what specifically has evolved a ton is surveillance technology, specifically through drones. First world militaries possess extremely sophisticated technology, both cameras, sensors like thermal, and of course night vision technologies. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to evade a first world military and their most advanced drones. We have some of the more advanced drones out here with us today, and we're going to be talking about the tactics, techniques, and procedures that you can do to minimize your chance of being detected or to be able to lose a drone, or what to do when you are being tracked by what we like to call the Eye of Sauron. But of course, we do want to thank all of our sponsors who keep this content free. We have the Sonoran Desert Institute. They keep this content free. They will help you get your start in gunsmithing. Go and check them out. Micah, of course, we have Primary Arms. We always talk about them. You can get plenty of different optics. Again, I get their own optics that are made by them. Whatever you need, they've got it. We highly recommend them. We have Mantis, so if you're looking to get better at shooting, it's going to turn your weapon into a dry fire machine. I love it. I practice with it quite a bit. Automatically resets your trigger. Incredible system. You love it as well, Micah, right?
I do.
And then, of course, we have AEC sponsoring ammunition. We're not going to be shooting that much today, or if at all, but they keep our skills sharp. With all that being said, talk is very cheap, but running up in the mountains is going to burn a lot of calories, so let's get into it. Okay, now before we get into it, let's take a look at the drone that is going to be actively hunting me. It is current gen military technology. I don't want to spoil it too much. Trey, please.
Hey guys, I'm Trey, American Outlaw, and this is my Mark I drone from Echo Mav. It is a current Group 2 ISR drone. It'll do about 15,000 feet, fly about 100 miles, has current thermal sensor technology. It's about a 80x zoom. Super
And
tough to get
we're
away
looking
from.
at stuff that is actively employed in areas.
Correct, by
in areas.
multiple governments.
By multiple governments in areas. So as far as this being utilized in some type of conflict, this is not at all implausible. This is quite a plausible scenario.
Correct, it's very plausible. It's used everywhere, and it's current technology.
And being where we are out here in the mountains, having a smaller drone like this that you can transport, I know you can set this guy up in 4 minutes. This is real life. This can be used by a smaller team, so this is cool tech.
Absolutely, this is recce teams. This is their dream, and you can pack this in, and it's hard to run from.
Well, we're certainly going to try. So, guys, we've introduced you to the drone. This is current tech. We're going to go back. We're going to get our scenario going. We're going to get hunted. Well, fight's on. Drone is now in the air, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the scenario. We are in a bad position right now. We are actively in combat. We are in a conflict with a first world military, whatever that might be. This might seem improbable, however, people throughout the world have found themselves in this situation time and time again. Don't discount it. So let's go ahead and let's pay attention. Let's talk about the first thing that we want to talk about, which is different ways to know that you're being observed by a drone. There are three general ways we can know we're being observed by a drone. Some of them seem pretty simple. The first one is, obviously, if you are able to kill someone who has some type of technology, such as an ATAC device like we showed in the beginning, that can show a drone feed, you know you're probably being watched. Two, if you are causing a lot of trouble, you are likely going to be observed by a drone, especially if you're striking larger targets, supply convoys, special operations teams, large battalions, things that have these assets in place. You have to understand that for the typical military organization, they will typically have their own organic, what we call assets, which means they have these drones that they can launch and spy and get surveillance with. So assume you're being monitored there. So essentially, if you're enough of a nuisance or you're attacking somebody that's large enough, you're going to be observed by a drone. And then three, the best way to do it is if you're fighting a military that is technologically superior enough, you're going to assume that you're always being observed by a drone. So kind of like firearms, right? Firearms always loaded. The drone is always watching. The eye of Sauron is always on you. So we should always practice TTPs that are designed to defeat drones. And funny enough, a lot of them are just your basic evasion techniques. A little bit of tweaking here and there. Let's go ahead, let's get into it. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and set the scenario. So we are fighting a first world military, and we are in a bad position right here. We just got through an ambush, we won, but the problem is we know that they know the last known location of where they are. We are now in an evasion posture. That means we need to get out of this area immediately. This is bad. We got a road right over there. You can see it just curving. This is a bad situation. I'm right here on a river. This is what we call lines of communication. These are major areas that people are going to be moving through. I need to get out of the area. So the very first thing that we're going to do once we get into that evasion posture in these types of scenarios is we're going to do what's called our initial movement. What the initial movement is it's going to be getting as far as possible from that site of contact from where you were last seen. Because how a search party works, even with a drone, is they go to that last known location. Let's say the drone loses you never know if it loses you or not. They're going to send that search party to that last known location, and they're going to do circular search patterns out until they find your tracks. So we need to put as much time, distance, and terrain between us and this position as possible. Mountains, hills, you're going to run, you're going to sprint until you vomit, you're going to run until you can't run, you're going to walk, and then you're going to crawl into a little hide site underneath a tree, underneath a rock, and you're going to assess your situation in that initial hide site. But the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and do our initial movement. Let's get the hell out of here. So as I'm going into this initial movement, I'm just booking it through all this. I'm moving as quick as possible. I'm finding the shittiest terrain. I'm going, and let's keep moving. Let's get as many miles as possible. Now, if you've seen the tracking video, you know we made some good tracks right there. But right now, initial movement, just work on getting that distance. All right, we've got a couple miles. I see a good little initial hide site here. So I'm living with the funnel spiders. Now here's the thing, initial hide sites are never perfect, but they're good enough. So when we're hiding from a thermal drone, what we're looking for is things that are gonna mask my thermal appearance. So right here, what we have is these rocks retain heat during the day. Me being a heat source, when I get under the rock right here and I see its movement and I'm mostly covered, I can disappear right into it just like you're seeing on this thermal footage. Now when I move, I can be pointed out, but this can give me a little bit of a reprieve and a rest after a miles of initial movement. So here's one example that we have right here. We're gonna go ahead and move up and show you one more example, and we're gonna talk about what we need to do in our initial hide site. Okay. So this is the initial hide site that I have chosen right here. Now, a couple of things that I'm looking for, like we talked about before. I want to get as much overhead cover as I can. So if Mike, if you pan to the trees right over there behind us, you can see any type of overhead cover is going to be very good for us. And the reason for that is for these larger drones that we're evading right now. They're going to be moving in an orbit around you. Now, it depends on their size, how big that orbit is. But the reason they do that is to get different angles. But it's easy for them to lose you as you're moving through thicker environments. Now, a couple of things that we want to talk about right here. We also have to worry about other people, because obviously we're going to be hunted at this point. We just killed 2 of their men. That means 100% they are after us. So another concern is still going to be our personal camouflage and moving quietly, moving like we're hunting, moving like we're being hunted by the deadliest animal on the planet, a human being. Now, let's talk a little bit about the different types of drones and what that can mean. So we're talking about drones right now that you can't even see or hear. These drones that we're talking about can be well above 10,000 feet. Taking a look at you, their optical sensors are that good. And you're never going to know that they're there. So again, we're always going to assume that we're being watched. A couple other things we need to think about is the type of drone that they're using. So if we have lower flying drones, smaller drones that are not as high that you can maybe spot, that lets you know that they're probably quite close. Those smaller drones don't have a huge range, especially out here in the mountains where signals are tough to come by, where all those radio signals are bouncing around. It's just hard for the drone to get that signal back to their guy. You know they're fairly close to you. FPV drones, same thing. They're going to be relatively close. And for FPVs, what we mean by that is these are extremely fast drones with munitions on them that are piloted through a first-person view. They're extremely deadly. They're little kamikaze drones. In thickets like this right here, it's very difficult for those things to maneuver through. They can, but your chance of being struck is significantly less in a dense thicket of forest than it is in the open. The open is a death sentence when it comes to drones. So when we talk about different environments like the desert or the tundra and the snow, the thermal sensors are so good that they can detect your footprints in the snow due to the heat from your boot, due to how the snow crushes and melts and creates a temperature differential. They can track you that way. In the sand of the desert, not as much, but the problem with the desert, as you know, is going to be how open it is. So in the desert, try to get to large rocky areas where you're able to conceal in with the thermal signature of those rocks. And in the snow, get down into the tree line as quickly as possible. If you're fighting in the tundra for whatever reason, there's other TTPs or probably some type of national military, and it's going to be a little bit different. But right here, we're in our thicket, we're in initial height site, so we need to take stock. What do we need to do? First thing I like to do in these situations, I like to do a quick just check, make sure I'm okay. Do a quick blood sweep, right? Reaching under my kit, just making sure during the firefight, during the time I was running, maybe they dropped some explosives near me. There's no blood, so I'm checking for blood, making sure I'm okay. Okay, I don't have any immediate medical needs. That's going to be important. Do I need to drink some water? Do I need to make sure I'm keeping myself alive? Take those moments to pause. You need to make sure that you're getting that sustenance. If you don't have water, we'll talk about that, but you should have water on you at the very beginning. Now, other things to think about. If you're fighting a first world military, electronic signals will get you killed. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to, one, kill my radio, make sure that it's off. Might even disconnect the battery. There are certain radios, even when they're off, they're still going to be transmitting signals. So for safety, if you don't have a military type radio, get that bitch all the way off. Cell phones, never have those on. Even when you turn off a cell phone, it can still transmit, it can still be pinged. So there are phones that have complete disconnects, but you need to either disconnect the battery or put it in some type of Faraday bag that prevents all signals from getting out. Otherwise, if they have like a rivet joint up there or some other type of aircraft that can harness electromagnetic signals, they're gonna find you, dude. So make sure all those things are killed. If you're working with any type of competent military force, any type of irregular force, you should have a comms plan in place. So what I mean by that is if you get isolated, you should be limiting your radio communications, radio signals, even crypto, can be triangulated. So what that means is I'm only going to transmit on certain timelines. So for example, today I am now evading A part of my evasion posture is my command element is going to know that when I go into evasion, if they don't hear from me, that I'm going to be transmitting at the 45 of each hour for 5 minutes if I can. That is my evasion type of communication, very short bursts, and then moving immediately afterwards. And that's the time when you're probably at your most vulnerable, because to get a signal, oftentimes you have to see sky. It can become rough. So think about those communication things. Now, what we can do for the right now is we can improve our personal camouflage. So the first thing we're going to improve is going to be my face camouflage. As you're running, as you're sweating, as good as your camouflage was initially, it's probably going to begin to wear off. Yeah, you can see lots of my skin. So what I want to do is I want to reapply my face paint as much as possible. As you can see, I have a mirror here so I can see what I look like. A lot of people will wear some type of face covering to cover most of their face. That is a good option as well. Just depends on what your style is. Are you more admin results or are you more grand thumb? Now, besides your face, any type of skin that's open, you need to have camouflage. So, for example, it is super hot. I don't want to sweat too badly because water's a hard commodity to come by. So I'm still going to have my sleeves rolled. So I need to apply that camouflage to my arm as well. And then with my hands, I have gloves on them to keep them. But if I didn't have gloves on, I would also need to put this camouflage on my hands. Other things that we can camouflage is we have this little wrist compass right here. You can smudge a little bit on to dull the amount of glint that comes off that. With my watch, I'm wearing a watch cover. These are very common. Tons of companies make them. This one is Sterling Timepieces that makes this one. I have it over my marathon watch. That will keep the glint off of there. And anything that you have that can reflect, cover it. I did this beforehand. That's like standard mission procedure. Any type of watch faces, crystal faces, get those covered. You don't want to give away your position with glint, shine, or anything like that. Make sure your kit's not making too much noise. Okay, now if you've watched the other videos, you know about these camouflaging techniques. But the one thing we're going to talk about now is going to be thermal camouflage. So there are camouflages that can mask your signature more against thermal eyes. So what we have right here is Ralph Camo. This is a very simple camouflage that can be bought by civilians. It's a tarp. It's meant to make into a shelter. But what I've actually done is I've added some zip ties to some of the openings to make it wearable by me. That way I can use it as a poncho while I move. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to make it more difficult for me to spot, which is the name of the game here, if I need to move. Another point as well, you can see that I have it on the outside of my pack. The reason for that is if you keep these inside your pack, they're going to be cooler than the ambient temperature because they're protected from the sun. Keep these strapped to the outside of your pack so they're closer to ambient temperature. That's going to allow it to get to the ambient temperature faster. That way, these can conceal you that much better. So we're going to go ahead and put this on now. Okay, now that we have a little bit of extra camouflage on us, we can also use this once we get into more of our better hide sites. We can better hide ourselves from the enemy. Now, we have to assume that we've been spotted. We probably still have been spotted within our hide sites. They're likely sending enemy forces against us. So what we now need to go into is our evasion movement. We're going to show you some more advanced techniques compared to our last video. Okay, so the first thing we need to do right here is if we have overhead cover, our life's a lot better. Try to stick to these thick vegetations, these thick forested areas with overhead cover. If I look this way, I can see that there's a lot more overhead cover over there. I'm going to stick to this. This also happens to be the direction of some civilization, which we're going to talk about why we're headed there in just a moment. So we're going to move like we're hunting right now. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we're watching. We're going to keep our eyes up and looking around. We're going to be as quiet as possible. Start moving. So what I'm doing right here, I'm stopping and I'm doing just like what we talked about before. Stop, look, listen, smell. Body armor, gunpowder, gun oil, gasoline, diesel, all those things are going to be big to listen for. Things you can listen for, you can hear it very faintly. A drone, that could be an FPV drone. These are different things we need to be looking for and paying attention to. Okay, we're going to keep moving now. Nice and quiet. Now, as we're moving, we're leaving footprints no matter what we do. It might be invisible to you, but very trackable for the train tracker. Small breaks in branches, crushed vegetation. Now, there's certain vegetation that when stepped upon will spring back up. So this type of area right here is going to delay anybody tracking me just a little bit more. Any types of footprints that you make might look invisible to you, but they're very seeable to a trained tracker. So the first bit of counter tracking advice I have is these types of bushes right here are going to spring up on your footprint, and if you place your footsteps carefully, they're going to conceal your footprints and make it that much more difficult to see. Now, there's a lot of things about walking backwards, having shoe imprints that are backwards. We're not too worried about all that. Right now, we're going to make somewhat erratic movements as we're moving through to make that a little bit more difficult for them. So this is one of our intermediate techniques that we can use. Now, a big thing is we need to be looking for a hide site, somewhere that we can settle down, we're able to gather our wits about us and have good cover from the air. Now, something that can happen to us as we're doing our evasion movement is we could possibly be targeted by an FPV drone. So we're going to demonstrate what to do when an FPV drone, or just any type of drone, makes contact with you once again. Now, as we're moving, possibly being targeted by different types of drones, if we hear those drones coming in to target us, that means we've been spotted. If they're low flying, if we can hear them, there's a good chance they're going to try to blow us up, drop something on us. So we need to, in any case, do our initial invasion movement once again, sprint, run, get as much of that distance as possible. You can see we're kind of in the open right here, so we're gonna go straight for cover. Done our initial movement. At that point, we're gonna reset, reconstitute ourselves, make sure we're feeling good, re-update our camo, and continue back to evasion movement, back to finding a good hide site. Now, if you've noticed, there have been multiple times when that drone has been circling and it's completely lost us. When we went into our initial hide site, it lost us. So how a search party works is they're gonna go off your last known position, they're gonna reestablish signs of what direction you're heading, and they're gonna work to flush you out in conjunction with the drone. But in really thick areas like this, it's gonna be very difficult for that drone. So once again, we're down to fighting against a ground enemy. So long as we stay within the thicket, we can avoid that drone. So what we need to do is now an intermediate technique for evasion, and it's a simple counter tracking technique called the J hook. So what we're gonna explain right here is a counter ambush, counter tracking movement called the J hook. So what we're doing is we're moving as we've always been moving, we're changing direction. As I'm moving, I'm trying to find a good hide site. I'm trying to find somewhere where I can hold up with good air cover away from drones. As I'm moving, I see it. I'm not gonna go directly to it though. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do what's called the J hook. So I'm going to pass at least 200 meters away from it. I'm going to do a 500 meter swing around back to that, or it could be bigger or it could be smaller, into my hide site. Once I'm at that hide site I spotted, my tracks are leading 200 meters off of it. I have the perfect vantage point for either an ambush and or to spot that enemy coming in to track me as I'm in a position I'm trying to sleep in, trying to rest in. Gives me all that more time to either kill them or get away. So we're gonna demonstrate what that looks like right now. Okay, so I see it right over there. So I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna go 500 meters past it, passing by it right now. Now with drones, you have to realize that if you're just walking out in the open, if you don't have any aerial cover, the J-hook's gonna suck. They're still gonna spot you. So you need to keep that good evasion movement and that good overhead cover. Okay, as you saw from our drone footage, you can see the big old J-hook we did into our hide site. So I climbed to my hide site. I have great shrub vegetation all around me. I have great overhead cover. And on top of this, I have a great sight line 100 to 200 meters away from myself. Now, the reason we do that extra gap or even more is because the search parties might not always be in a straight line directly in your track. Sometimes they'll do a large wedge. Sometimes they'll do other formations that are better at flushing. So the larger distance we have, the better. But in these tight, hard confines, they're gonna be making a lot of noise. It's also gonna help give them away. It's like a natural little noise machine. So from right here, I can either let them pass, so you can engage them if that's going to work, you think you can take them, or you're going to lay low. Generally, what I recommend is if they're passing by you, they probably don't know your exact location. If they're not looking directly at you, if they're not coming directly for you, they're probably just on your tracks. you know that you have over half a kilometer of movement that direction. Once they pass a good distance, you can then pick up, change directions, and continue your movement. Again, always be watching out. You always should assume you're being observed by that drone. We'll show you what that drone shot would look like right now. Okay, so we've sent a smaller drone with the same sensor, a little bit lower, so we can demonstrate something really interesting. So right here, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna shrug off my thermal camo. We're gonna take a look at with and without thermal camo, and we're gonna point out some really interesting things to you. So as you can see, I'm without thermal camo right now. Despite that, with the heat that the trees absorb, with the heat that the ground and the plants absorb, it's actually fairly difficult to spot me. And that's one of the great things about traveling during the day, or especially during thermal crossover. So what thermal crossover is we have dawn and dusk. During those times, there's a lot of weird stuff happening with heat, and it makes it very difficult to detect humans, especially when they're not moving. Movement is gonna be the big killer when it comes to thermal. So right here, moving, you got me? Okay, now what we'll do, I'm gonna go ahead, take this thermal poncho, I'm gonna hold it up. How's that look? Where am I at, Todd? Haha, success. Pretty cool little demonstration, guys. Thermal camo is pretty awesome. In conjunction with any type of vegetation or overhead cover, it makes you very difficult to spot though. So thermal camo isn't like an end all. It's not going to just make you disappear into thermal, but what it's going to do is make it a little bit more difficult to point you out in certain environments, and in high tides really block a lot of that heat coming off of you. So as you can see right here, good. You can see right there, they just passed within about 150 meters. That looked like the left leading edge of their element. I think they're moving in a fan. They don't seem to have my location. They're following my tracks. That means that they're passing. They got another 500 meters for that J-hook. At this point, I don't want to engage. It's going to give away my position. They don't know precisely where I am. I'm going to continue undercover. I'm going to get away from this once their sounds have faded. So we're going to wait. Be calm in these situations. They didn't see us. Okay, they're good. We're moving. So we just had that death squad coming through. Now, why that was important to show was that they're not wearing any type of thermal camo. They're just wearing normal combat equipment, which is radiating their body heat as they should. Because of that, they show up very either white hot or black hot, depending on how that thermal sensor is configured. Now, in comparison to our hide sight using thermal camouflage, using other thermal camouflaging techniques, we appear far less hot. This can make it that much more difficult for a drone operator, even vectoring in their own friendly soldiers onto where they think you are because of that juxtaposition in heat values. So it's going to be important to use those things that we've been talking about. Now, these techniques also work in many other environments, such as urban. Use the same techniques. Get underground, get within buildings, make it confusing for the drone. In fact, it is incredibly difficult for a drone to operate in hot, humid environments, specifically because that jungle canopy is so dang thick. Use all that to your advantage as much as possible. Very famously, the Afghanis were very good at using rocks in order to conceal their thermal heat signatures when they were fighting us. Again, they have learned a lot from fighting us. So this will make it very difficult to spot. I showed that a little bit earlier. Utilize these techniques. Now here's the thing, we're up here in the mountains, we're traveling through the forest, we're utilizing these techniques, we're evading these squads, we're evading drones. Where are we going? Because we have to assume that we're probably going to be spotted and watched the entire time. They might lose us for a minute, they might regain us, their time on station might switch out, they might switch out drones, so they're probably going to be able to spot us if they're really hunting us down. If you've really been causing a problem for you, they're coming for you. So where do you go? Not back to your base. If you can go to some type of neutral population center, into a city, and get in there, specifically if you're able to get into that city, you're not going to confuse the drone with your heat signature getting into the city and beginning to mingle with people. What's going to confuse it is when you get into a building that already has a large population in it. Obviously you have to change your clothes. And then once you exit that building, make sure that you change, obviously, your appearance as well as your gait, posture, and the way that you're behaving. Because gait and posture are both positive identifiers as well and will have been tracked by the drones. So become something different. That goes into our urban series. Please watch that. That stuff all works against drones as well. Now we've talked about all that. Let's talk about a couple special considerations here, specifically communications and sustenance. Now let's talk a couple special considerations. First one, if they have a Predator drone, which carries Hellfire missiles, if they really want to strike you with a Hellfire, if they have that capability, they will strike you with Hellfire. You will be evaporated. That's life. That's warfare. You never know if an artillery shell is going to hit you, you're going to get a rocket. We're going to try and do our best to keep ourselves alive. Now, if they don't have those capabilities, because of where they are, because they're low in munitions, then this is all going to work. Just understand the possibility of death is always there. It's war. Now, a couple other things. If you're in an area where you're completely not able to get away, you're in the sand dunes and they have small drones that they're hunting you with, there's probably not a whole lot you can do but stand and fight. Find a good defensive position and fight against them. The chances of you being able to outrun them, especially if they have vehicles, is going to be low. If it's all on foot, man, it's going to be a foot race. Same thing goes for the tundra. If you're on the frozen tundras up in the north or south areas of the poles, then you can also do that, or you can also build yourself a snow cave if you're able to get into those areas to conceal yourself, especially during inclement weather, such as a bad snowstorm, and you're able to break that line of sight. Understand that, like I said before, get into that tree line in the tundra, or in the desert, getting into those rocky formations is going to be critical to saving your life. Again, we have been fighting people in the desert for a long time, and they've gotten quite good at evading. In fact, the Afghanis very famously would just take a wool blanket and throw it over themselves. Right up here, you can see all these rocky cliffs that we're in. Again, this makes it very difficult for our pursuers to find us. It makes it very difficult for them to get comms with each other, to get comms with their drones. However, this proves a problem for us as well with our own comms. So if you truly do need to make comms with your people, you're going to have to bring yourself up out of these areas in order to get comms. It's probably one of the most dangerous things you can do because it exposes you both to drones, to observation by various recon teams, by their military, by whoever. It's dangerous. If you have to make comms, do it. Just understand the massive risk that you do take. And no matter what, the best places to evade are some of the worst places to make comms with, and that's just life. There's not really a way around it. Make comms when you need to. Conserve that electromagnetic energy. Another consideration is going to be sustenance. Obviously, water is going to be very important. You got 2 days and you are messed up, especially evading. After 3 days, you're dead. I know it because I've done it. Well, not the death part, but the dehydration exercise through 2 days of evasion. After 2 days, I was practically unable to move. My entire body is cramping up. You need to have water. You need to be getting that water often. You can't really ration water. You can ration your sweat. Try to keep yourself from sweating. They like to say that in survival, if you can be lazy, be lazy. But the thing about evasion, being hunted by death squads and drones, not really a possibility. So from time to time, you're gonna have to come to a water source. The problem with water sources is not just you are going there, animals going there, specifically human beings. Even animals, even deer running away from you could possibly give away your position. But there's a high likelihood, especially on a river like this, that you're probably gonna get seen. Try to stick to small streams if at all possible. But sometimes this is all you can get to. Sometimes this is what you're gonna be able to have. Beggars aren't choosers when it comes to the stuff. In all cases, a river, a stream offers an opening in a canopy, almost always. In the jungle, it's one of the only openings in a canopy that you can reliably count on. Because of that, it's always very dangerous to get water. Now, we talked about getting water in our previous evasion videos. We're not going to talk about that now. But what we can talk about is if there's a likelihood that we are spotted. If you have to, the thing about thermal is that it can't actually see through water. So we're not going to do a predator and cover ourselves in mud because that mud will heat up and you're just going to be seen. However, if I get in this river and I float down and I submerge my body, I can make it that much more difficult for a drone to spot me, especially as I go along the rocks and hide in there as I'm floating down. So we're going to take a look through the thermal as I get into this river and I float for a little bit and have a good time. Now, to be clear, getting into a river, floating down it for thermal camouflage is probably a last case scenario for me because there are going to be people on the river. There's a high chance of being spotted, but there are times when you might have to. There are times when it might make sense. It's another tool for the toolbox. Don't assume this is what I am recommending. Drones are not going away. This is going to be a fact of warfare from here on out. If you think this is a fallacy, if you think this isn't real, simply look at any new altercation, any new war, any new conflict that is occurring. Drones are being heavily used. You need to understand them, you need to utilize them, and you need to understand how to evade them. Evasion of drones it comes down to soldiering. It comes down to the most basic soldiering. Keeping the overhead cover, keeping the camouflage on you, moving when you know you're able to, and being as careful as possible. You need to always assume that you're being watched. The difference between practicing these techniques to the utmost of your ability versus being lackadaisical about them could be the difference between getting home to your family, getting home to your kids, to your compatriots that you work with, versus being annihilated by an enemy, versus being captured and tortured horrifically. The point is, it might not seem like the stakes are high right now, but what you need to understand is when you need this information, when you need to have been practicing this, it's all before it actually occurs. What makes America amazing is the fact that concerned citizens can be just as good as trained soldiers at this. That is the American ethos. Be as good as a soldier. Be as practiced as them. In fact, be better than them. Hold yourself to a higher standard because one day your family might just rely on you. Now guys, thank you so much for watching this video. We have tons more in the survival series. Stay training out there. We appreciate you all. Read the Bible. That's your dad advice.
All right, guys. Mike is the real deal. Let me say Grand Thumb.
Shit, Mike, dude. It's fucking weird to call me Grand Thumb.
Grand Thumb is the real deal.
Let's go.
Hey, listen, he's freaking hard to catch. The pilot that we had right now flew at the highest levels inside of the country for, I think, 17 years. And his exact words were, "Damn, Mike's fast." And then he said, "I've seen better."
Probably from the Afghanis, dude.
the true mountain goats. But Mike he's incredible, and he was super hard to find. In your thoughts, how hard is it to run from a drone?
Well, I think what's difficult about a drone is you just don't know, right? So there's never like a moment you can relax when you suspect that there's a drone on you. So it's like you're just constantly in this really kind of high threat evasion posture the entire time, which is what makes evading drones so difficult, because it's just like you have to be on your game 100% of the time. And even if so, you can still be spotted. So it's just like it's kind of chance, you know, whether or not you're spotted. There's some skill to it, but if you're doing everything right, you can still get picked up. It's just like, if you're gonna die, you're gonna die, man.
As one of the things we talked about as the video has progressed is when they have vehicles like the UTV that we had, we were able to get to him faster than it took him to get there. And then when he started using the steep mountains, like, I don't know if you could see how sweaty all of us were. Like it was tough keeping up in the steep mountains. So he did a really good job of creating space from us there and being able to outrun us in the mountains. But you got to think about that stuff, and having other teams that were coming on you, depending on how high of a value target you are, you could just run into somebody else that you didn't see. So yeah, when you have a drone, there's a very good chance you're just not making it out of that. But dude, appreciate you.
Hey, thank you, man.
It was fun.
Appreciate you bringing out like $1 million worth of drones.
It was fun. But stay tuned for the next one, guys. We got something cool coming.
Hey, guys, don't forget to watch the what is the channel called? Last American Outlaw.
American Outlaw.
Last American.
His dog.